Hello, Collateral Gaming listeners. Chazzle Dazzle here from the Trial by Error Variety Show podcast. I just wanted to take a few seconds to invite you guys over to what we do. No, it's not video games, but we do invite really awesome and unique bands from all over the world. We dig deep into their souls and find really cool stories to tell you, and there's tons of music every week, so subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to your podcast. We look forward to having you.
On this episode of the bonus round, we are celebrating the official title and release date announcement of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, coming out May 12th, with an in-depth analysis of all content shown so far, as well as our own predictions and wishes for this highly anticipated game. So stick around, the show starts right now. Welcome to Collateral Gaming Bonus Round. I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Zachary Gio.
And we are podcasting across the states. And yes, my friends, this is a 420 friendly podcast. So whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it. Zach, oh my God, we just got the announcement of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, something we actually brought up in the news segment of our season premiere with Megan.
Yes! We fucking got it. Finally! Damn, we needed it. About fucking time that they... I'm sorry, guys. I'm popping off a little too early, but you guys know how happy I am about Breath of the Wild. We finally got this. Continue, Ash. I apologize.
No, you're good, man. Yeah, no, we are actually dedicating an episode of the bonus round to just compiling everything that we know so far, kind of doing an analysis / breakdown of all the trailer content that we've gotten, and including, you know, the title of the game, things like that. Any opening thoughts, my friend?
Dude, all I can really think about, like, I'm losing my words just because of this. All I really know is that this game is going to be sick. We've got elements from the first game, plus just so much more to unpack. Not only do we have this massive scale of Hyrule that we had in Breath of the Wild, but now we get to take to the fucking skies. Now we get to explore the sky the way I had always wanted to. And to be honest, we didn't see anything like it in the trailer, but I kind of hope we get an ability to search underwater too, because that was one thing that was lacking from Breath of the Wild, was water exploration.
This is true.
But it looks like we're going to have a game full of awesome, sweet new abilities, awesome looking cosmetics, because I mean, just looking at Link from the trailer, he's letting his hair hang out. He's got this piece of arm technology that I'm sure will be important at some point or out throughout the entire game, whatever. But I'm just excited. It looks amazing. It looks leagues better than Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild is already a masterpiece. So I'm really excited to get that going. I'm really excited to see what they do with the storyline. I'm really excited to see how they implement like dungeons and stuff like that. I'm hype, and May cannot get here soon enough.
No, it cannot. I'm so happy that we got a release date. We actually got a title of the game. We got an official subtitle, which is really, really nice. Gives us some hints as to what's going on. I know they were holding off on delivering the title because they didn't want to give away too much of the story. I don't know what they had to worry about because we really don't know too much yet. But I think that in and of itself is telling, along with some cues now in the trailers. So first off, it is Tears of the Kingdom, not Tears, in case you were wondering. First of all, if you read the original Japanese, you can tell that that's the way it's meant to be pronounced. But that actually, I believe, was confirmed via Miyamoto or Aonuma, one of the two of them. And so, yeah, it is Tears of the Kingdom, which I think is a clue that our quest items in this game are going to be similar to the Tears of Light that we saw in Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword.
You know, I hope you're right, and I hope you're wrong. I really, really love the tiers in Skyward Sword. Like the spirit, I guess they're spirit shards. You're using them to strengthen your spirit so that you can get the gifts of the goddess. But in Twilight Princess, it was not fun. It was not enjoyable. It kind of was a momentum killer. But seeing how Breath of the Wild is going to continue to be that open world RPG style of gameplay, I think that if it is like that, they have serious potential to just knock it out of the park. And it's really exciting. But
Yeah.
it could also be something you were talking about earlier. It could be a dungeon. It could be a dungeon quest, you know?
That's what I think. I think that the tiers are not going to be relegated to side quests. By the way, they're probably not even going to be called Tiers of Light. They may have some other name because they're going to be something else entirely. Or they might reuse it because they've reused that name twice already. But the main point being that that I think that these are going to be the quest items. I think that they're going to be what you obtain after each dungeon, meaning we may actually get 7 dungeons in this game plus a final dungeon, which would be chef's kiss. That would just be the perfect way to improve on the criticisms of Breath of the Wild, which was that there weren't that many dungeons.
Oh my God. And they didn't feel classic. Like they
Yeah.
felt like you were just going into another giant structure and solving puzzles inside of it. Zelda dungeons are supposed to feel they're supposed to be. I know there's not going to be a break in between. There's not going to be like a loading screen in between the outside or the inside of the dungeon, but it needs to be like you need to open a giant locked door or go down a long flight of stairs, you know?
Yeah, I guess that would be my only gripe with Breath of the Wild is that the dungeons are they just feel a little bit lacking. If anything, the shrines were a little bit more similar to the gameplay that we see in
Yep.
dungeons in previous Zelda games, and I think that the 120 shrines in the game totally made up for it. But it was definitely not to everyone's taste that the dungeon gameplay would be broken up so much. So maybe Nintendo is actually listening to feedback and criticism and adjusting. I would be nice to see. I think that they're gonna deliver a phenomenal game no matter what. But
Oh
it's
yeah.
just, it's just finding that balance between the open world and allowing the player to go anywhere, wherever they want, but still being able to tell a story. And I think I understand the hardships that come with that. I understand why Breath of the Wild had some difficulties with its storytelling aspect and with the dungeon gameplay, because dungeons also felt dissimilar because they didn't have specific dungeon items because they loaded all your abilities up at the beginning, which in an open world
Mm-hmm.
game, that's kind of really one of the only ways you can do it.
Yep. Because I mean, to be honest, you're supposed to be able to go anywhere and everywhere at any time. Now, I would not be opposed to them blocking off certain areas to get certain items, but I don't know how exactly they would do it. It would just be, but they've had 6 years to kind of figure it out. So I'm happily going to just take in whatever they've created. I wonder if the game's going to start on the Great Plateau again, or if it's going to start like in Hyrule Castle.
I have a feeling the game is going to start with the content that we saw in the very first trailer of the game. Those catacombs that Link and Zelda were discovering, because it seems to be where the game story seems to be picking up. Obviously, we saw a corpse that seems to look like Ganondorf. We saw some power emanating, and what seems to be the events of the game kicking off, including Hyrule Castle breaking off from the mainland and floating up into the sky a la Skyward Sword. We see the beginnings of that in that trailer. We also see Zelda falling. I'd kind of hope that Zelda would actually be a presence throughout the game and that we'd kind of break the cycle with Zelda not getting captured, but it looks like more than likely she's still going to be captured and we're going to be saving her, which is fine. I mean, don't fix what isn't broken, I guess. But
Yeah.
I guess that's the only thing I could say I'd be mildly disappointed by, and I mean mildly.
I wouldn't necessarily be disappointed by it. And like you said, we don't exactly know what we're getting into. We might have just it might be something where we get to play as Zelda later on in the game. That'd be cool. But honestly, with the success of the Zelda formula, I don't think they would pull away from playing strictly as Link. And with as much content as they have to show us, I don't know how I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to go along with it. And that's really exciting because Zelda games prior to Breath of the Wild, it was all linear with a focused storyline, a set number of dungeons. You get an item every single dungeon, and that was great. Like that formula worked ever since 1986. Like it's worked. and that's wonderful. But now Breath of the Wild broke the mold, and
Yeah.
there was no way to expect or even kind of guess what was coming. There were so many puzzles and places to go, chests to open, enemies to kill. It was wild. And the story kind of threw you for a loop. Granted, it wasn't the greatest story in the world, but Ash said it. I mean, it's kind of difficult to get the story of an open world game like just right.
Right, right. It is difficult, but I have faith in Nintendo that they'll even kind of improve on the way that Breath of the Wild handled. By the way, I don't have any complaints about the overall story with Breath of the Wild, just that we don't really get any developments throughout the game due to the open world nature of the game. And if that's the price we have to pay to get an open world Zelda game, I'm fine with it. But I also think that I'd like to see how Nintendo could tackle that issue, because we've definitely had some open world games that have told some very deep stories, and I'd love to get back into the sort of lore that we've seen in previous Zelda entries, the sort of stories that we've gotten in games like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword that had deep, intricate stories.
Yeah, Skyward Sword had so far the best story in the entire Zelda series. Like hands down. Like that it was the one game where you felt like rescuing Zelda is all that mattered.
Yeah.
And because Link and Zelda were obviously in love in that game, and it was so precious the way they did it. I want a story like that. I want the story to grip me. I want to be excited to go to the next story element, but I'm too busy working on all my side quests and everything to get there. With Breath of the Wild, I had more fun doing the side quests and everything else, and I just went to the story when I had to. And yeah, of course I enjoyed the cutscenes and stuff like that. It was interesting to watch the memories and all that. But seeing as most of the story had already happened before you even woke up, it made me lose a lot of interest. And I hope that they don't. I mean, I don't think they're going to go that route because Link has been awake this whole time.
Right.
This game is going to consist of nothing but new developments, which is great. I'm super excited about that. But that's part of what Breath of the Wild did wrong, in my opinion. I think most of the story took place before you even woke up, or well, before you went down the first time, and you're
Yeah.
basically kind of recovering pieces of yourself. You're recovering memories, which it's a cool concept, but when you don't actually get to live through those events and you have to look at them through the lens of a memory, it's not as interesting as it could be. It kind of misses the mark a good bit.
And it's a gimmick that I think only works the one time. So I don't see
Yeah.
Nintendo retreading history. An interesting way that they could add really interesting developments in the story is to kind of focus on characters or individual stories for each region that you come across. And I don't think that would be hard to implement at all. Just focus all of the development on telling these individual arcs within each area, and then maybe focus on the characters that you're going to encounter there. I think that would probably be the perfect way that we would actually get some kind of story progression in an open world format.
Yeah.
And as far as like the items go, even if you wanted to introduce items throughout the game, you could do that. This is something I actually had been thinking about since the original Breath of the Wild, was that what you could do is just have items that work more specifically within the area that they're found, and then just have puzzles throughout the world that are open-ended that could be solved a number of ways. Something that Breath of the Wild actually already did. And so
Yeah.
that way, even if you didn't go to the area to these areas in the specific order, you may have multiple ways of going about it and solving puzzles, and maybe it would be a little bit easier if you brought the item from this area. That's just my thoughts on how they could tackle that issue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think that there's a set number of ways that they can do it, but at the same time, they can do it any way they want.
In the end, they're gonna blow us away and do something probably
Oh
completely
my
different than
God,
what we're
Ash.
expecting. And
I cannot fucking wait, brother. I am telling you, it is gonna be so good. And it releases in May, which you and I are getting older, as is everybody who exists. We're all getting older, but this year has flown by so fast. I cannot believe that it's already almost October. It's cool. Danielle and I are actually talking on the subject of October. It's a bonus round. Everybody will be fine. Danielle and I, have you seen The Good Place? You've watched The Good Place, right?
yeah, I watched everything but the final season.
Danielle and I are dressing up as as Jian Yu and Oh God, I forgot her name. Danielle's gonna kill me. Janet. We're dressing up as Jason and Janet.
Oh, that is so cute. I love it.
Oh, it's gonna be so much fun. I cannot wait. I'm gonna call her girl throughout the night, and she's gonna be like, not a girl.
Not a girl.
So I'm excited for it. But I mean, the year is moving by so quickly to get back on track, which means we're gonna blink, and May 12th is gonna be here.
Yeah.
And I am thinking about quitting my job just to play this game for a week straight. No, I can't do all that.
Don't
But
quit your job. Just take a vacation. Set it in
Oh,
advance.
no, Danielle's already told me that if I do that, she'd divorce me. So before we even got married. So she's like, you can spend the weekend grinding it, but don't quit your job. I'll be really mad at you. I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
No, just
sorry.
take a week vacation. Save up all your vacation time and just take a week off.
Well,
And-
to be honest, I am excited about this game. But if I'm going to take a week vacation, I'm going to take her on a trip. We're going to go somewhere.
That's actually a good point. And
Yeah.
and yeah, you should probably do that. I don't know.
She'd kill me if I used my PTO just to play Zelda.
I'm definitely. I think I'm going to take some PTO out and really just focus on this. And the nice thing is that we'll be structuring this episode like we do, like we Metroid Dread last season, where in part
Yeah.
1 we'll kind of go spoiler free, and then in part 2 we're going to go into full spoiler territory. So we're doing the same thing with God of War Ragnarok. That game we are going to be talking about. When it comes out in November, and then in December for our holiday special, we're going to actually be finishing up part 2. With Breath of the Wild, I would like to, as soon as the game comes out, maybe a week after it releases, we're going to come out with our first impressions. And
Yep.
then either at the end of May, or even if it stretches into June, so we have a good month to play it, that's fine, because it's the end of the season, so I don't really care. But
Yeah, if
that's
I
when
have a
we're going to
month to
go
play-
into full territory.
If I have a month to play that game, I'm going to beat the absolute shit out of it before we even talk about it once.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be hard pressed to to not 100% the game if I can.
And to be honest, this game is going to be like, I love Breath of the Wild. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I think this game is going to be 10 times the game that Breath of the Wild was. If they go back to, if they make the game just as big, if not bigger, but they go with traditional style dungeons, this might be my favorite game of all time. And that's including Metroid Prime. Like, I love Metroid Prime. You know how much I love that game, but this game has the potential to be just everything. It has
Yeah.
the potential to be one of the best games ever made. And I think it has the potential to surpass Ocarina of Time as the best Zelda game ever made, because no game has done that. Ocarina of Time set the tone for all future 3D action adventure games.
I think
And
Breath of the Wild stands about equal to, but didn't do quite enough to surpass Ocarina. I think they're kind of on equal footing.
But yeah, Breath of the Wild though Breath of the Wild and every single 3D Zelda wouldn't have happened. That formula wouldn't have happened without Ocarina of Time. The whole targeting system where you can focus on one enemy at a time as Link while cycling through your different weapons, and you could hold multiple weapons at a time and use them without having to like go back through and re-equip everything. Ocarina of Time set a lot of standards for those kinds of games, and it's really cool to finally see a game that could really contest that top spot. And
Right.
like I told you, go ahead.
Well, I would say, but Breath of the Wild contested that because it was equally as monumental to changing the Zelda formula and
Yep.
setting a new standard with the open world format. What, in my opinion, I think that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker are actually better games than Ocarina. I know that's kind of a hot take, but I think that they take what Ocarina did and they expand on it, and that just makes them fundamentally better games. I would like to see that happen for Breath of the Wild. Take the concept, expand on it, dig a little bit deeper. Go ahead.
I would agree with that statement for Wind Waker, not so much as Twilight Princess, because I actually prefer Ocarina of Time's art style and its level progression more than Twilight Princess. Even though I like Twilight Princess's story more, I don't think hardly any Zelda games have quite the clean pacing that Ocarina of Time does. There's always some sort of momentum killer. With Twilight Princess, it's the tears. With Wind Waker, it's the gathering the shards of the Triforce and sailing around the ocean. Like those are pacing killers. With Ocarina of Time, it was just boom, 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 boom. You didn't have to stop to do any ridiculous side quests. You just went boom, boom, boom. and then you're enjoying this god tier like story, and then it's done. You can go through it again.
That's true. Ocarina of Time doesn't have a collection main quest mission, which is interesting. A lot of Zelda games do. Like I said, Twilight Princess, Windbreaker, Skyward Sword all do that towards the end of the game. And it does definitely feel like padding. Something that Ocarina of Time did is that at its mid game switch, it just moves into the adult era, and it focuses on playing through the 5 or 6. I think it's actually 5 dungeons. Yeah, because there's no Temple of Light. The 5 temples in order to collect the medallions. We're getting off into other tangents here, but I think that, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom will probably be one main quest, which is collecting those 7 tiers. I don't see it as having that mid-game switch, because that doesn't really work as much with the open world format. Where I think it'll make up for that, like Breath of the Wild, is it's going to have a number of side quests that I think are going to contribute just as much to the overall experience. That's something that Breath of the Wild excelled at, is that these side quests felt just as fun, just as compelling as the main story, including the shrines, including the which I think to get the full experience of the game, you need to play all 120 shrines. Do you think we'll see shrines in this one, or some component variant like it?
I mean, I would say maybe. That's a maybe. I can't see them completely knocking them out. I don't know if there will be as many, but the shrines in Breath of the Wild were how the character, or were how the player increased their heart containers or their stamina. So they're going to have a system for us to do that again. And the shrines worked out pretty well. It was awesome to take time to solve a series of puzzles just to like increase your stamina or your ability to live. I think they're going to incorporate something like that, but I don't know if there's going to be 140 plus shrines,
Yeah. Well, there were 120 in the original game. What I would do probably is actually just divide those by 4 and make them much longer. And then so instead of, collecting 4 spirit orbs to complete a heart container or stamina wheel, you would just directly do that as a result. You would gain for each shrine that you do, which would be, presumably 4 times as long. You would get, or hard, you would get, a full heart container or a full stamina wheel. And so instead of, 120, you'd have 30 shrines, but they're all pretty long.
God, that would be a bit of a nightmare. Oh God, but yeah, I mean, it would be awesome. It would make for so much playable content.
Yeah.
But I think since Nintendo has literally spent the past 6 years working on this game, like Breath of the Wild came, well, by the time that Tears of the Kingdom comes out, it will have been 6 years. They have literally spent the past 5 years grinding out and working on this game. And it took about that long to release Breath of the Wild. So I am genuinely excited to see how much content they pack into it. I'm excited to see how much of the land is similar. I'm excited to see how much of it's different, because some of it's going to be recognizable. It's not, they're using the same engine. They're going to use the same groundwork, but part of the map is going to be lifted into the sky after whatever happens in the beginning. I'm really pumped to see how they do it, how they make it happen.
By the way, if you pay attention to the trailers, there are no shrines or Sheikah towers in the landscape. They're all gone, which is really interesting, because it either means that we're going back in time, which was something that you had mentioned, or for some reason those have disappeared from the landscape. And I think that's something that's worth mentioning. I'd also like to talk about some of the abilities that we've seen in the game.
Yes, sir. Bring it on.
Well, first of all, we have what appears to be a variant of stasis that actually allows you to send objects back in time along the same trajectory that they progress. We saw this in the first trailer, and we actually saw this again in the most recent trailer. And a lot of people may not have noticed that they're the same ability, but they actually do have the same effect, and they seem to be doing the same thing. There's this line that moves across that represents the object's trajectory, and you're just basically sending it back through its path. And I think that's a really interesting ability that's going to have some fun gameplay mechanics to it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think if it's used well, if it's created well, I think we're going to have a hell of a time with it.
Yeah. We also have an ability where Link seems to be able to move through objects that we saw in the first
Ooh.
trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on there, but it looks cool as hell. So,
It
go ahead.
it looks it looks like you're gonna have some funny deaths. It looks like if you unless the game doesn't let you do it, if you can't safely come out on the other side, if it lets you do it through anything and you can like get stuck in rocks and stuff, that shit is going to be hilarious.
Well,
Because
Breath of the Wild's alternate title is The Legend of Zelda: 100 Ways to Die.
yep, 100%.
That's what I loved about that game is there's so many ways that you could just fucking
Oh, that's perfect. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I actually I think that would be funny if they would allow you to do that, and then you could, or maybe it would work a little bit more like Mirio's power in My Hero Academia, where you just sort of bounce away from things.
Oh, Mirio Togata.
That's basically what we seem to be able to do is we can pass through objects like he can do, which is really cool. That seems to be activated more like the divine powers did in Breath of the Wild than any rune, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally agree with that.
We also, in the most recent trailer, seem to be getting what looks like an upgrade to the paraglider. Now, in previous trailers, we do see the paraglider, so we know that at least at some part in the game you'll have it, unless what we were seeing was footage of the game that ended up being changed later. But I think that you'll start with the paraglider, and then you'll be upgraded to this item, which is almost in structure like a miniature divine beast. Like Varuta maybe, but you actually seem to be able to ride it around and go wherever you want, and that thing looks cool as hell.
It does look really cool, and it also you've played the Minish Cap, right?
Yeah, I've played through most of the Minish Cap. I got to the very to the end game, like the part of the game where you're just kind of finishing up all of your side quests, and then I've just never progressed past that point.
It looks like the boss of the Palace of Winds. That thing that you can ride on. It looks a lot like the Palace of Winds boss, which if you haven't finished Minish Cap, you really need to because it's fantastic.
I need to finish Minish Cap. I know it's like probably the most underrated Zelda title. It is so good. I actually have been enjoying the hell out of the puzzle mechanics and whatnot, and I've actually kind of played through the game mostly a couple times now, and I just right now I just got caught in that in-game slog where you're just kind of trying to finish up everything that you saved for later, and I guess I kind of lost interest with it, even though a lot of the side quests are fun. There's only so many ken stones you can fuse.
Yeah, the ken stones are annoying, but it's all right because that game's old and its time is done. So, but I mean, the dungeons are fantastic. The story is really good. It's very heartwarming.
Yeah.
And Eslo is one of the best sidekicks in all of Zelda history.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love a lot of the mechanics in that game. But yeah, no, I am yeah, we're just over our minds with Tears of the Kingdom. Just so happy to be getting, even just the most minuscule amount of content. Like Zelda fans are just I feel bad for our fellow Metroid fans actually right now.
Yeah, I mean, Metroid just got kind of shit on. I mean, Dread's a really good game. It was beautifully made and the gameplay is amazing, but this takes the cake. And I am willing to I've staked my whole life on the fact that Tears of the Kingdom will be Game of the Year. Hands down. It already looks amazing. It already looks like a game that people will be playing for years to come. I mean, Breath of the Wild has trick shotters on it. It's hilarious. People will find anything and everything to do on Breath of the Wild. And so I'm just super excited to see what Tears of the Kingdom brings. Wow. I thought well, okay. So I have another question.
Uh-huh.
All right. So obviously in the beginning trailers, we see a figure that looks a lot like Ganondorf. Where do you think that's going? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think happened to Zelda when she falls into that crevice? What do you think is happening here?
Well, it seems to be that this is the original Ganondorf, or an original incarnation of him prior to his regression into a force of nature. Because we see that Calamity Ganon does not seem to have any sort of personality. It's just malice incarnate. Ganon has been reincarnated so many times that it's lost its individuality.
He's
Uh,
just angry now.
yeah. So Ganondorf, and with the Calamity Ganon defeated, we kind of needed a way to bring in, and it would have been fun, sure, to bring in a brand new villain into the series, but I actually kind of like where they're going with the original Ganondorf, or an incarnation of him. I
Yeah, it feels like they're getting ready to like move past him. Like Link and Zelda are going to find some way to ultimately shut him down, to like overcome the curse of him being reincarnated, because he's getting so tired of being reincarnated and losing that he's just losing the will. Like
Yeah.
it's just becoming pure hatred at this point, and hatred can be snuffed out.
Yeah, and then that body seems to be being resurrected, and maybe that's something that'll happen during the course of the game, is that he's slowly gaining more power, and maybe that's what leads the breakaway of the Sky Islands from the mainland. Is it's some kind of reaction to the resurrection of the Demon King, not unlike the goddess Hylia sending those islands skyward after the well, in reaction to demise.
Which is going to make for a hell of a final boss fight, man. That's another thing I want in this game. The boss fights were cool, but they were very, very repetitive in Breath of the Wild. I want more diversity in enemies. I want more diversity in overall battles, and I want there to be more action on the ground. I would love for them to make use of the sky for fighting.
That's
You
true.
know
Yeah,
how
the bosses in Breath of the Wild are, in some ways, a little underwhelming, because your main dungeon bosses were all just variants of Ganon.
Yeah.
They were Thunder Black Ganon, Wind Black Ganon, blah blah blah, and then even your overworld bosses were all just Hinoxes and Taluses
Yep.
and variants of those. So
It
being
got
able to
very
see
old.
being able to see some variation, and actually having new and creative bosses that we're used to in previous Zelda games would be really nice. Just every dungeon kind of having its own unique feel, make them stand apart, and that definitely includes the boss that you face at the end of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh God, if they get the enemies right and they get the music right, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Was the music needs to be a lot more diverse. There needs to be a lot of return to like original Zelda themes. There needs to be just more than ambience in the background
Yeah, yeah.
throughout the course of the game.
Well, and that was kind of part of the appeal of Breath of the Wild, was that a lot of it was just that ambient noise. That's actually what they were going for. But now that we've done that, it would be nice to see them kind of branch out and do something. And I know that this is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, so in tone and mood, it's going to be quite similar. I still
Yeah.
think that they can include some orchestral arrangements. I mean, I will say that the orchestral arrangements that we do get in Breath of the Wild are bangers, and some of the best
Oh
music
yeah.
in the series. I actually enjoy the main theme. I love the variation of it that plays at the end, in the Dark Beast Ganon fight. Just
Yep.
so epic.
Even though that fight is very shit.
That fight is just I love it because it has an epic feel to it. It's not hard. It's not particularly challenging. It's kind of like the final fight in a lot of games. I mean, I can even compare, like, Final Fantasy VII kind of does the same thing. Is that the final fight is a cinematic one. It's one that's meant not so much to be a challenge, but to actually make you feel a sense of triumph, and to actually make you feel like you're winning. And I actually definitely can understand a place for that. And it makes sense because usually the second to last boss that you fight right before it is going to be the one that is actually a challenge.
Well,
and then that
to
final
me,
one is just kind of more cinematic. Go ahead.
if I'm being honest, Calamity Ganon was never a challenge. It just wasn't difficult because if you did all of the divine beasts, they knock out half the health for you.
This is true.
And that to me is just not, it's not a challenge. I want the final boss to be something that kills me 100 times before I finally just take a break, come back the next day and beat it on the first try. Because that's usually how difficult boss fights go, you know?
What's nice about Calamity Ganon is that it is the result of you actually making progress throughout the game. The game is going to be the boss fight is going to be a lot easier as a result of you doing everything that you were supposed to do, equipping yourself appropriately. And in that sense, it's kind of similar to Majora at the end of Majora's Mask, in that,
Ugh.
if you spent the time and you did everything, you actually, the boss fight is a culmination of your experience throughout the game. And there's something beautiful about that. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, I did the thing I was supposed to do. I went through the 4 dungeons, so I still do expect a challenge out of the last boss fight. And Calamity Ganon, I think, on his own, without knocking half of his health away, and especially if you didn't defeat any of the Ganons and you actually have to fight them one after the other beforehand, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think it would be cool. I like the idea of your progression in the game having an effect on the in-game fight, but still make it a challenge. I think that's important.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Oh man. So let's say they brought back uh dungeon based items, like items that you get throughout the course of the game instead of everything happening at the very beginning. How do you think they would incorporate that? And what would you want to see happen from that?
Well, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think it would be nice if the puzzles were open-ended enough that even if you didn't get this item from this area, you could still complete this puzzle in this area. And in that sense, if you get this item first, that's going to make this puzzle a lot easier. But you can also tackle this puzzle by itself. I
Yeah.
think that would honestly be the ideal way to do that. And like we said, there's a precedent for that. Breath of the Wild already has open-ended puzzles,
Yep.
so if you're going to give players multiple ways to go about it, link that to the progression of the game. And then the other thing is that you can obviously have puzzles that are, designed around certain items that you gain, and just isolate it to that area. Have some side content and some things that you can get that you can only do if you say got this item from this area, because in an open world game you can absolutely do that with the side content.
Yeah, absolutely right. There's so much that can be done. It's kind of difficult to make a prediction on it, but we can only hope, you know? So I don't know how they're going to do it.
I would like to see the return of a collection quest or set of puzzles similar to the Korok seeds, but just maybe more rewarding.
Yeah, no, if they do some shit like the Korok seeds again and you just get a pile of poop for getting them all, I'm going to be really upset
Well,
because that's a waste of time.
about half of them are rewarding, because they're actually the only way to expand your inventory, which is actually crucial in Breath of the Wild, especially if you're playing in some of the later difficulties, or in the master mode difficulty.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I like that, but yeah, the fact that half of them are just rewarded by nothing more than a prank, a joke item, it was just it is a slap in the face to anybody who actually went out of their way to collect all 900 of them. But
Me.
that being said, sometimes the journey is more than the reward. And what I liked about the Korok side quest was the puzzles themselves. I love how they integrated that into the environment. And so everywhere you go, every little nook and cranny, there was a little puzzle to solve. And the way that they actually implemented that during development was they actually had people test the game, and they found the areas of the game that people avoided the most. And that's where they stuck all the puzzles, which is actually a really cool way to go about that.
Yeah, because it makes you explore the entire map.
Yeah. And yeah, I like how they even added a feature in the game that tracks where you've gone. So you can even say, see, I haven't been on this pathway. It's actually amazing how many hundreds of hours you can pour into the game, and you actually haven't walked through the entire map. There are pathways you have not taken. and with Tears of the Kingdom, maybe essentially doubling the overworld map, that the possibilities are limitless.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited because obviously it's not going to be the exact same map as the last game. The ground might be a little similar, but I mean, come on, there's going to be a lot of new stuff to explore. And if you didn't even explore the entire map in Breath of the Wild, just imagine what you're going to find in this game. I'm excited to see how they implement puzzles, how they implement challenges, where they put dungeons and stuff. I'm so excited because I know I don't think the Divine Beasts are going to come back.
I do think that we're going to get something somewhat similar, or at least, related to the Sheikah, because, I mean, we are talking about tears. And one of the immediate things that evokes, I think, is the Sheikah tear, which was featured prominently throughout Breath of the Wild. So I do think that we're going to get something somewhat related to the Sheikah. But I don't think, I think the Divine Beasts are a gimmick that has been done already with Breath of the Wild. Really, all I needed out of a sequel was a game that used the original assets. It could have even taken place on the exact same map of Hyrule, and there probably still could have been a lot you could do with that. You could have just
Absolutely.
yeah, like you could have just master quested that shit, and it would have been fine. But we're getting a brand new game.
I wouldn't want a master quest of it. I want brand new dungeons. I want new characters, new important story characters. I want a story that doesn't make me feel like I'm rehashing shit that already happened. I want really challenging boss fights that are diverse. There's so much that this game has potential to offer, and I cannot wait for that.
Well, and I say that as, in terms of if we'd gotten a sequel maybe 2 to 3 years after Breath of the Wild came out, and honestly, what I'm describing probably would have been more apt for DLC, if anything, and that is kind of what they did, but not really.
Yeah.
But with the development time that we're getting, what'd you say, 6 years? It's 27. Well, Breath of the Wild came out in 2017.
And they were probably still working on. I would say that the development for this is at least 4.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you don't have to create an entire new engine and you can just kind of you can just kind of create an entire new game on the same engine, it's not going to take near as much time.
Right.
Because they're going with the exact same art style and shit, so.
Right, and you're reusing assets. It's, again, that's what they did with Majora's Mask. But they actually wanted to stress that it's not like that. That's not what they're doing this time. They're not, they're not making a game just reusing all of the same assets with a quick development time. I mean, no, they're spending another 6 years on this game, so they're actually crafting something new, but they're smart enough that they don't have to start everything over from scratch, which I'm thankful for, because I'm like, Nintendo, it's okay to reuse some of your assets. That's actually fine. You spent all this time in development, go ahead and do it, and I'm okay with that. And if they wanted to, they could even stretch that out and do another game and make this into a trilogy. I don't know that they will. I think that they'll probably just stop here at the sequel and then do something new, but
it could go anyway. If this game is really successful, they might close it out with a trilogy, or depending on what they do with the story here, they might, close it out. It's all a matter of time, and we will find out come May.
Can you imagine if this game ended on a cliffhanger and we found out there was a third game coming?
It would be fucking nuts. It would be something that has never happened in the Zelda series, and it would be really exciting because they're breaking new ground with this, and it's really, really important that they get it right. Because if they don't, I mean, the entire series is kind of relying on this.
Right. I kind of hope that we get some of the enemy variations that we saw in Age of Calamity. For a game that didn't introduce any new enemy types, they really actually made the most out of the existing enemy types, making elemental versions of practically every enemy that was in the game. I hope that's not all we get, I will add, but it would be nice to kind of see some of those variations in this game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. My thing that I really hope that they get right is these dungeons. they need to nail these dungeons because the dungeons are the core essence of Zelda exploration. Yes, side quests are awesome, characters are awesome, story is great, but dungeons is what makes Zelda great. Dungeons are what makes Zelda great. And that's why Skyward Sword is one of my favorite games because it has some of the best dungeons in the series. They need to hit the nail on the head because I was disappointed in Breath of the Wild's dungeons. Yeah, the Divine Beasts were cool, using their mechanics to move them around so that you could, activate all the terminals. It was a nice concept, but doing it 4 times with similar layouts, fighting bosses that had the same practical design, it was annoying. I didn't like that. I thought that there was more that could have been done with that. But if Tears of the Kingdom does what I think it's going to do and gets the dungeons right, it's going to be the best game of all time, hands down. So I there's not much more I can hash out with this. I'm excited for this game. It was time that they gave us a title, and Tears of the Kingdom is perfect. That is the most badass Zelda title I have ever heard.
Yeah,
And I'm pumped.
I was wondering how they would kind of tie it in to Breath of the Wild. It seems that in a lot of Zelda sequels, there does seem to be a Majora's Mask notwithstanding, there does seem to be kind of a theme going on, a link between worlds. So I was hoping that they would kind of tie it into the title, but I'm like, what would you do? Like Blank of the Wild, a Breath of the something or other. I don't know. Just I like what they did though, Tears of the Kingdom, because I think it still evokes that feeling of Breath of the Wild. I think it leads you to think, yeah, okay, this is a sequel, but it is something new entirely, and the implications of what Tears of the Kingdom means. I mean, it sounds like it is tying into the ancient kingdom of Hyrule, and also, like I said, the implication of the tears being some kind of quest item that you gain, being your main quest item.
Yeah, dude, I'm so pumped about it. I'm so pumped about it, dude. I mean, it'll pay homage to Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess if it's a tier. If you're collecting tiers in a belt, like just individual small tiers, or if they're the main focus of the game, which it looks like from the recent trailer that's what it's going to be. It's going to be amazing, and I'm really excited for them to return to the old Zelda format, but in an open world style. It is going to be so good.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I love the logo design as well, that sort of dragon Ouroboros. One thing that I saw pointed out in a YouTube video, I think it was an IGN video that was a trailer breakdown, was that dragon actually kind of looks like the iconography of the Zonai Kingdom that was featured in the Faerun region. And the fact there's a part in the trailer that looks like it actually takes place in the Faerun region. So it would be cool to kind of get some background with that Zonai Kingdom that was mentioned. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing some more context there. But yeah, I have to agree with you, brother. This game looks phenomenal already. I mean, Nintendo just knows how to fucking get their fans excited with very little.
Oh, dude, I am so ready. My body is ready.
My body is Reggie.
All right, Reggie, you bastard. Oh, but man, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm glad to have been able to sit down and do the bonus round with you. Tears of the Kingdom is going to be absolutely sick, and I'm kind of excited because after we record this, Ash and I here are gonna watch some Chuck.
Some Chuck. Hell yeah, we are.
Some badass Chuck. I love that show. If you haven't watched Chuck, I highly recommend it. I'm not going to say anything about what it's about. It's just what it's about. I'm sorry. And yeah, y'all just go check it out. Ash, May 12th is going to be a very special day because I think you and I should get on Discord and just play the game together.
I think we should, dude.
It would be, I'm so pumped. And like, I want to experience the opening of the game with somebody who understands like what's happening. And God, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, we got to do some kind of fucking, I don't know if you wouldn't call it a play party, I guess. Not a watch party.
I don't know how we do it with, with the Switch, though. I'll have to figure out how to stream my Switch because I definitely want to do that.
I have a Switch Lite, so that makes it even more difficult. But we can at least
Yeah.
talk to each other while we're doing it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I want to try to stream Tears of the Kingdom, like to everybody who can watch. I want to see if I can't figure it out. I'll stream it to Facebook first, and then I'll see if I can't get on Twitch.
If you have a regular Switch, you can do that. That shouldn't be a problem. You just have to hook up a game card, and you can do it. Capture
The
card.
capture card. Yeah, I'm getting an Elgato soon, so that shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah. I have the Elgato, and that's what I've used for a lot of my content. But anywho, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us feedback on your platform of choice, and stay tuned for our season premiere on Final Fantasy VII. I just recorded that with Megan a few days ago, Megan and Bo, and I'm actually going to have this out before that as kind of a inter-season bonus. But yeah, very soon, that's actually already been recorded. I've just got to edit it and put it out there. And then we are finishing up with Final Fantasy VII Remake as the final part of September's content. And then in October, we're going to be doing Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 2 Remake, which, another kind of compare and contrast between the two. That's going to be our spooky season content. And there is a lot more going on in the month of October as well, especially with Collateral Cinema. Collateral Cinema will actually be opening in September. We are watching The Human Centipede.
Oh, God.
That's going to be our opening season premiere.
Oh,
I believe
no.
Monster Squad. So.
Not The Human Centipede.
Yeah, the first one. So, we don't shy away from the disturbing content on Collateral Cinema. I mean, we've done movies like Martyrs and Necromantic, so by those standards, Human Centipede may even be a little tame.
Oh, God. Shit. Well, all right. Well, that's Collateral Gaming.
Guys, check us out on Patreon. We will have even more exclusive Let's Play video game commentaries. Speaking of Breath of the Wild, I actually need to finish my commentary on that. I'm actually towards the end of the game as of the time of recording this. I either already beat Vanda Boris or I was about to. I think I beat it. I think I'm in like the post-game content at this point. So, yeah, stay tuned for the end of that series, and hopefully we can move on to other series as well with our Let's Play content. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out the group Collateral Media Podcasts. That's our de facto shitposting group, and I have a lot of fun with that.
Oh, yeah, brother.
So, and you can find Collateral Gaming wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google, you name it. If we're not somewhere, let us know. Also, I would like to publish this season's content and see if we can get some collaborators to on some of our episodes this year. Because with Collateral Cinema, we've pretty much, for almost every episode, got somebody guest hosting. And I'd like to have a similar experience on the video game podcast because... so if you're a streamer, gamer, fellow podcaster, feel free to come on the show, man. I would love to have somebody. We've had guests in the past, and it is nice to hear everyone's opinions on things. In fact, I'm not going to actually talk about it here, but we may have a pretty significant guest on our Tears of the Kingdom episode in May. So
yeah, that's going to be awesome if I can swing that. So, but guys, I really appreciate you guys coming in to listen. I'm really hoping that this game turns out to be just the banger that it's supposed to be. And as always, we appreciate you guys taking the time to come and listen to us. It's always fun to talk and just goof off with these games.
Hell yeah, man. Well, that being said, I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Zachary Gio.
This has been Collateral Gaming, and we are out. Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media Podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.